Hello, everyone. Welcome back again. Thank you for making it all the way through to yet another episode of what is the kind of like from time to time sporadic and yet always excellent Datnexa Podcast. Working with a range of people who are using emerging technology, AI, data, technical stuff. Dare I say geeky? Can we say geeky? Is geeky?
Yeah,
is
self-confessed,
that,
I think. Yeah,
cool. Stuff in the world, but with a sense of making it work for the people, tech for good, and kind of all the good things. So today I'm joined by Patrick from Adapt Digital, who are not a new company. They've been around for a decade, which in the terms of AI and emerging tech and kind of everything that's going on, basically makes you one of the sage voices in this industry, a source of wisdom, which we shall now.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. Okay. And that's quotable because we're now, it's rolling. But I think kind of what I found really interesting about your story was the way that you don't use technology for the sake of technology. You use technology to do something that actually has a real world benefit. And that's something that you've spent a decade working through. So I think that's kind of where it's really useful for, kind of like our audience love hearing about that, and they love hearing about practically how this stuff can make a difference. Maybe there's a bit of fatigue out there. I'm going to say that, kind of we did a couple of sessions last week before, people kind of talking about like AI fatigue and like, almost like innovation fatigue and stuff like that. So I think to hear from someone who's been doing it will be, like super cool. Maybe that's a question we can ask later. How do you beat innovation fatigue when everything's new for so long? How is it you get like 10 minutes down? But I think the way that Adapt started to kick us off, you talk a lot about saving people time, saving people money, saving people their own very sanity, I think is kind of like a key part of it. And you've used software, you've used automation, you're using AI and that kind of stuff. But what was that first time that you realized that you could use this stuff to solve a problem? How messy was it? And who was it for, I think, is the cool bit.
Yeah, so I guess my origin story, I taught myself how to code coming out of school. There's the very geeky bit of it. I had two main interests, to be fair, growing up, one of which my dad got me into, which I'll come on to in a minute, which was golf.
Okay.
So he got me into golf at a young age. Again, quite a geeky sport, I think, sadly. Doesn't have a lot of street cred.
But it's so popular, though. That's
it is now. Like... Yeah, COVID made it boom. But he got me into golf. I kind of dropped out of college, didn't go to university, was one of those people that didn't really see the value in having a piece of paper to prove that I could do something when I could just demonstrate that I can do it.
Yeah.
And my brother is to thank for the IT side of things. He's about he's my half brother technically. He's about 10 years older than me. And I think when he must have been 18 or 19, I was obviously 8 or 9, and he had quite a fascination for computers at the time. So there was always hardware and open computers and stuff at home in his bedroom and things. And so I think I kind of picked it up from him. But yeah, I taught myself how to code. Originally started off just building websites. Back in the day, this was probably 2010. So back in the day when you still needed to know how to build a website, how to write the code, etc., to have a website. That's kind of how it started. And then I quickly kind of hit these technical ceilings, I suppose, where I plateaued in terms of my own technical growth. So I kind of found building websites quite easy as you do with learning anything, right? You become more kind of au fait with it and more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then that gradually evolved. I was kind of looking for the next challenge, next brief to kind of expand my technical capabilities. And that's when I kind of happened to stumble across my dad slaving away at his computer. He's sadly no longer with us. He died in 2021, but he was a painter and decorator. And he was, like probably a lot of tradespeople still do today, agonizingly, he was doing his invoicing through Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
It was taking him probably 2 or 3 hours of an evening. And I thought, you don't need to be doing that. And you also don't need to go through the hassle of learning a new software platform like Xero or QuickBooks or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's, I chose that as a kind of a brief to build him what I chose to call Biz Butler at the time.
Oh, nice. That's a hell of a good brand.
Thank you.
I can almost see the logo. That's very good. Yeah, I like that.
So that was kind of the thinking. It ended up just being, I guess, the invoicing feature of Xero, QuickBooks, these kind of platforms now. So he had a contact book, obviously never got that big because he was only a little kind of one-man band painter decorator, PDF generator, and an invoice kind of interface that he could kind of add his line items, pick a contact, click send, and it would generate an email, generic, obviously templated email, attach the PDF and send it to a client. And so that was kind of the, I guess, unlocking moment of realizing that building websites is fun. It helps people to get online, but actually there's much more value to the kind of skills I was acquiring in helping people to work smoother and simpler, which is what we do today.
That's so interesting. It also, I think, just that sort of journey that you had, and not going down a path that was right for you, is actually, as we've spoken to people over the course of the kind of like it seems to be a common trend, and it's like there seems to always have been a moment where it's like almost I don't want to do that, or that's not going to work for me, but I can see this other route through, or I can actually, in retrospect, it's like, oh yeah, I can see this route through. At the time, it was a bit like I can kind of sort of see a way through, and then you kind of go through it. Is that something that you think, like is that something that you kind of use it when you're producing stuff and products and things like that, or is that part of being innovative?
100%. Yeah, I think it's. So we've got four kind of values as a team, as a business, two of which are curiosity and courage.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think they're the pillars of innovation.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be curious enough to want to explore new ways of doing things, new innovations.
Yeah.
And then you've also got to have the courage to actually take action on testing them, on innovating, on experimenting.
Yeah.
Ideas are worthless unless you take action, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but that I think there's that sort of the fear can actually hold back. So actually,
100%.
But then I think where a lot of technical projects fall, or where technical teams fail, is where they see the fear but do not foster the courage. And I think that balance is kind of key, because if you don't, you're working with people client side, that's their job, that's their career. If that project doesn't work, and it's easy to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to smash on and do this thing, and why can't you do that? But it is their job. So it's kind of, I think I really like that. I like the principles of the pillars of innovation is just a nice thing. I think, I'm going to write that down.
Good. No, you're welcome. As long as you make a reference, that's fine.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so it's interesting you mentioned there, like the people aspect of it, because I think too often knowledge companies or businesses like yours and mine that work hard to help businesses and people to work more efficiently get a bad rap for like focusing, like being tech evangelists. They're just about the tech. They forget about the people. And so our other two values, to kind of round that off, are empathy and pragmatism.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Because without the people, the tech's not going to get used, right? And
I think so many rabbit holes we need to dance around now. But I think so the pragmatism is, so I've been going around saying that, like, I'm a technology pragmatist, just to get people to go, what's that mean? But we have a thing of like, don't talk about the what if, talk about the so what. And that brings it back into, so it's like, oh, what if we could do that? You're like, so what?
Yeah.
And how does that bring back? The empathy piece is just so key. Are you finding that, so the thing with AI is that you can actually do a lot of the technical work very quickly. And we're continually finding situations where the technology isn't the problem as such, in the way that, for what we can spin up in a couple of weeks for, so like 10K, can put a proof of concept into someone's hands. I know that if I was to build that 5 years ago, that would be 300K, like not even an exaggeration. But at that point, it then comes down to process, it comes down to what people are using it for, it comes down to the objectives, comes down to the strategy of it and things like that. how does that, or actually, what you've talking about like scaling chaos and stuff like that as well. So I think in a situation where you have technology that can be done very quickly, and you have a need to make sure that you're being empathetic to people, how do you then kind of get that aligned or marshaled? Because I think a lot of people can't start these projects because that's an overwhelming proposition to be in. But you've dealt with scaling or not scaling the chaos, I should say, or you've dealt with the chaos before scaling.
Yeah.
How does that even work in your world, and how do you unpick that, and how do you approach that?
So yeah, I mean, crikey, lots of avenues to go down there. I think the first one I'll start with is the bucket that we and a lot of businesses like ours would get put into is digital transformation.
Yeah.
And the word transformation, I think, carries a lot of weight, and therefore causes a lot of anxiety and stress, and all those nasty emotions that typically change, certainly in larger organizations, but also probably smaller ones, brings with it.
Yeah.
And so I think, and what we try and help our clients do is to reframe that and focus more on evolving. Because a lot of businesses in today's world, digital transformation started, 10, 15 years ago, really, as a term.
Yeah. I think it was kind of, you had the first the .com stuff.
Yeah.
Then big data kind of raised its head.
Yeah.
Then digital transformation kind of kicked in.
Exactly.
And then you had social kind of running along the same side. But I always felt social was almost like social was what you do in your spare time, but then digital transformation is what you do.
Your work thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that. So yeah, no, I think it's
and I think back then it was more transformative because people were going from typically paper-based processes, which there's probably still a few people out there that are relying on that for comfort and other reasons, to something which was very new, and at the time really quite innovative, and so that carried a lot of kind of weight with it, emotional weight with it. But I think in today's world, a lot of businesses, or at least I like to think, a lot of businesses are already digitally enabled, right? Yeah. They're using hopefully cloud-based accounting software, and they're hopefully using, Google Docs and Word and things like this. And so that was kind of the digital transformation piece. And I think it's more just about evolving how they're working. And that can be a lot more iterative, both emotionally and tangibly. It doesn't have to be a transformative sort of wipe the slate clean, start afresh, stop doing it that way, start doing it this way. It can be, let's build on what you're doing and reduce that emotional burden of getting you to somewhere that's more efficient. And ultimately, and this was kind of the main kind of emotional anchor for me in those early days with my dad, was helping him to do less of something he doesn't need to be doing. And obviously in today's world of AI, there's even less that humans need to be doing, which is, we could probably take that down a bit of a stressful angle, but I think there's a lot of positivity to be seen in that.
It's a bit, I think that sort of drudge work, or like the things that, like the tasks that you don't like doing. But also I think where this stuff's good is where you've got something that's quite repetitive. And if the more that you can, you don't want to put anything like on rails and be like, right, you've got this total of free roaming technology. You don't want to be like, you can only go here, here, here. But you do need to kind of put the parameters as to where it can go. And I think the more standardized the process, the more standardized the mechanism of it, then the easier it is to do that.
100%.
And also as it stands, the machines don't feel one way or another, and they're good at doing stuff quickly. And, kind of that, I think that's where, if you were to look and kind of say, well, actually, this allows you to do 100 invoices a day or an hour, then that frees you up to do the stuff that you actually do like doing, which is...
And is ultimately, hopefully, more valuable use of your time.
Yeah, it's the value piece.
And I think that's the biggest kind of anchor that people have to their work, is that they've often done things a certain way for so long that, how would I spend my time if I wasn't doing this job that I do every day, because it's part of my daily job.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that is where the innovation is going to come. It's in the business process changes. It's the technology is one part of it, but it's how the kind of wider business society evolves.
We started doing this thing like the anatomy of AI.
Right.
So you'd say, well, you've got the source information, you've got the raw content or data, and then you've got the context you put on top of it, and then that allows you to structure it and make it nice.
Make sense of it, yeah.
Then you can take your AI tools, and they're all over the place, and you can, rent them from Amazon or, whoever else. And then you can make an interface for it. Or you can make it no interface whatsoever, and just so one of our tools just drops into Teams, and it's like you're talking to it's as easy as talking to the person.
Yeah.
And for a while we were like, this is the anatomy of AI. And actually very quickly we realized that that's the and when people see that, they're like, oh, we could do this. It's the next slide when you start looking at the things that fall between those different gaps, those different parts of it. So you may look at, the structure of the data from raw data. To do that, you need to understand what that data is, how it fits together, and all of those bits. That's really interesting because that's the future of work.
Yeah.
But again, it's this idea of like crocodile or log. You need to jump into the river to find out what it is. And more often than not, it is a log. More often than not.
Yeah.
But I think that it's kind of the communication of that and helping people work through that. Because once something's delivered, and I think that's the benefit of it being delivered so quickly, is people can tinker with it. And this benefits from that sort of approach,
100%.
right? So as soon as that happens, people can then get hands-on and then almost find their own new ways of doing things.
They unlock that same sort of process that I went through with learning how to code.
Yeah.
Of, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I think that's always been a kind of a long-standing concern of mine as well, with just the use of the web in general, is the general population don't know what's secure, what's dangerous, what's phishing email, and they just blindly trust it.
Yeah.
And heading into this kind of age of AI, I worry that if we don't get a handle on that soon, that could potentially cause significantly more trouble. Yeah. But I think if more people had a bit more, just a basic understanding. They don't need to be technology specialists. They don't need to. They just need to know the signs and have the markers in their mind of, oh, hang on a second, before I do this, or do I feel comfortable doing this? And a lot of people don't even venture that far of getting comfortable.
Yeah, we've always thought, like cars, like driving, you don't know, like most people, especially with modern cars, you wouldn't know how it's working. Maybe when I'd learned to drive, I could figure out. I once bought a book about how to build your own car, then realised that I shouldn't do anything like that ever. That would just be
not for me.
No, I could draw a picture of it. I could write a nice thing about it, but I couldn't build it.
Yeah.
But I could vaguely understand how a car was put together. Now I have no idea. EVs, stuff like that. The amount of technology. Yeah, I can follow the highway code, and I know what a good driver or a bad driver is. It feels like we need that level of maturity to kind of come along.
Yeah.
And also this idea of, so when we first discussed this, I'm just going to take it in a different direction, which is, when we first discussed this, we were talking about death to Excel, which I just think is the best thing, like let death to Excel. But what we also need to do is acknowledge that in the modern age, the most resilient unit within any given business is a human with an email inbox and Excel. And with those three things put together, you can basically do anything. And the amount of places you go into and they're like, oh, we haven't got a process for this. But we have name of person who we email, who has an Excel spreadsheet. And you're like, right, okay. In that sort of, is what you're talking about, of people getting a good comprehension of what this stuff is and then being able to move into that world, going to allow them to start to use AI to make their own software, to, kind of, and get rid of that Excel piece? Or is that a different, or do you have another demise for Excel in mind?
It's funny, that analogy you mentioned there of having a person in a business that has a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Because that to me is quite a black box, right? And everybody talks about AI as a black box.
Yeah.
Theoretically, AI is less likely to be kind of as unreliable potentially as if somebody goes on sick or decides to leave the business, or
also if you have someone who makes that spreadsheet and then they leave the business and then someone else picks up that spreadsheet. If it is on one of the cloud instances of Microsoft Office, do be aware that one day that spreadsheet may disappear because they have long-term security things that means that it's deleted after. So, it's a black box, and it's not even a core, it's not a core piece of infrastructure. It's not something that's on the risk register of
and yet
like
so
that.
many businesses rely on it for making critical business decisions.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one angle. The other angle was around excuse me. It was around something. It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It was Death to Excel, black box. This is how we do stuff around here. Is it that? Because I was thinking that, because that's the thing of like, often when you look at the Excel spreadsheet or the whatever, or the old system, you kind of go, oh, this works like this. Why does it work like that? And they go, oh no, the system works like that. And but that was designed by someone at some point, and there could be a different way of doing it. So it's like the re-engineering of business.
So I suppose the kind of death to Excel piece was around historically, people have picked up Excel spreadsheets or spreadsheets in general, not necessarily, there are other products out there. But they've typically picked them up because it's the quickest and at the time easiest thing versus creating something a bit more appropriate.
Yeah.
Historically, you've needed to speak to myself or somebody with my sort of skill set to, as you say, before the likes of AI came about, probably spend at least months creating something that can then be iterated on, and it's a long-term significant investment. Nowadays, with the likes of Replit, Lovable, and other solutions out there, with those kind of ingredients of curiosity and a bit of courage to just tinker, there are more robust solutions that can be created, at least as experiments for whether there's something more appropriate out there.
Yeah.
Whether that becomes the long-term solution or not is probably worth having a conversation with somebody who has kind of the technical understanding to evaluate it.
Yeah.
But often case, these solutions, as you say, start off as spreadsheets that are configured by somebody's brain.
Yeah.
And if that brain no longer exists, they tend to fall apart quite quickly. Whereas something a bit more robust, like software, in theory, has rules and structure and things in it that, and as I say, with the plans like Replit, the providers like Replit and Lovable and others, the cost is no longer there. There's the reason to use a spreadsheet is a null, it's a moot point.
It's quite, and it's easier to use as well. I think there's that sort of thing of like humans like convenience and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's more accessible. You can access it from your phone, and it's not an absolute nightmare.
And you can talk to it, and that sort of that chat bit of it, I think is quite interesting, because all of a sudden you've got something that allows you to move. You don't have to learn another language. You don't need the syntax to it. I think your point's very valid, though, that once it goes to a certain level and you want to take it that bit bigger, talking to people it's almost like it's not hiring you to say, can you build this for me? It's more going, you've built one of these before. How you understand where this will go wrong. You'll understand how to take it so everyone can use it. And like all of those elements are quite
I guess
key,
it's kind of a bit back to your kind of building a car analogy.
Yeah.
You could build a car. I dare say you might want to get a mechanic to check it over before you go and take it down the M25.
Yeah. Like MOTs are very
exactly. Have somebody with a bit of background knowledge to verify what you've done to make sure that it's safe and secure and scalable and all those things.
I think there's that sort of idea of like, you've got, especially with AI, it's a powerful tool, and that idea of with scaling the chaos, if it's chaotic and all you do is scale it, then I like to think it's like giving me a microphone and asking me to sing. I'm not going to get better at singing. I'm just going to get louder at singing, which is a very different proposition. And I think that like, this is now the time where those sorts of skills are super useful. Actually, just go back to one of the things earlier. So you founded Adapt in 2015. So that's kind of like prime digital transformation. That's people moving from on-premises to cloud. There's digitalization and digitization going on. And now we're looking at AI, and that is a lot of change, a lot of continual cycles of change. How do you stay fresh in that sort of space, and how do you kind of make sure that you're finding new things, or and how do you not just get burnt out by the fact that everything's changing all the time everywhere?
It's getting harder.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The cycles are getting faster.
Yes.
It's as you say, back then it was kind of a new thing like came out maybe once every, I don't know, year as like a major update. Nowadays it's probably once a quarter, possibly more.
Yeah.
So it does become a lot, and as you say, that you mentioned earlier, the fatigue of it all.
Yeah.
I think I guess it's applying kind of the human elements to it of what do I feel is important. If I kind of, instead of relying on what the big tech bros are telling me as the next big thing, having a bit of curiosity to go and kind of have a dig around and do my own research into, yes, I might use LLMs to help me kind of summarize some of it, but at least build my own picture. I think having that foundation of kind of curiosity is probably the biggest thing. I think a lot of businesses, especially in the SME space where they don't have teams within their business to come to management on technology and what they should and shouldn't be doing, having a desire to just be curious, I guess. Subscribe to certain news providers, hopefully trustworthy ones, whatever that is in today's world. And speaking to people probably like you and I, and just kind of getting a feel for what the latest. Ironically, probably one of the most effective ways is to use an LLM, I would say. In terms of having a sort of risk-free in terms of embarrassment or kind of a vulnerable conversation with something like Claude or ChatGPT is probably going to be a much lower barrier to entry for your local kind of SME business owner than trying to find potentially somebody with our sort of expertise who is willing to give up some of their time free of charge or to lend some advice. There's still kind of a heavy blanket of consultants out there that will kind of charge by the hour.
Yes.
So I think using LLMs to ask some of those, what a lot of people might consider stupid questions, just to build up that resilience of being curious. It takes practice. It takes a lot to kind of ask that first question of being a novice and not knowing where to start and breaking that seal, I guess.
It's the idea of in the face of AI, you know, kind of like there's this idea of how do you define what's human and how do you kind of work through, and there's this lovely sort of like set of things, which is critical thinking, genuine social interaction, and also kind of like creative curiosity. And these are three things that Aristotle came up with. And you're like,
it was a while ago.
Hang on, how's that relevant? But actually, I think that sort of tip of just being curious and using it, I think learning by doing works with this, because also anyone who says they've written the book on it clearly hasn't had the time to write the book because it's so new. And it is a cycle of stuff that's evolving very quickly. So it's almost like closer to a situational awareness or environmental change than it is to here's the chapter and verse of all knowledge on this thing, because it, you know, and anyone who's saying that is patently not. You know, I think there's repeatable patterns or repeatable things.
There's fundamentals,
but it's not I like that. Fundamentals the fundamentals still apply.
They do. That's their very nature, right? They uphold everything else. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all those sorts of things. Like they are still around and still referenced so consistently and frequently because they're fundamental. They can't be kind of disputed, really.
It is. And, potentially there's something in that when you kind of talk about what is it that you can trust? How does it work? You know, and for people, I mean, we've kind of had this idea of doing like fables, like sort of like the AI fables for business is the thing. And, you know, like, so the crocodile or log is like, if you know, it's just working it through in ways that are very accessible, but help people build up those patterns and kind of get into it. With one eye on and your experience of like SMEs and helping them out, if you were to, you know, say someone's watching this now, and certainly we're going to clip it, so someone will be watching this right now. What are the top things that you would say to someone who's not used this stuff at all, hasn't, you know, kind of is running a small to medium sized business and wants to use this, but just doesn't know where to start?
I honestly, I don't know if it's just because it's fresh in my mind from mentioning a moment ago, and I don't want to kind of repeat myself, but I do think that just chatting with AI, pick your model, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Google, whichever you prefer. But that gives you, because I think the biggest blocker for those sorts of individuals is looking a fool, is not being knowledgeable enough to even hold a conversation around the subject. And so if they can gain a little bit of exposure, and one of the best ways that you can use these models, and one of the most effective things they can do, is asking them to explain something to you that is quite a technical subject as if you're a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or something very, 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 very kind of young and inexperienced. And they do an incredible job of using analogies and metaphors and examples that can help to make these kind of very complex subjects really quite sort of relatable and understandable. I think if you'd asked me this question before LLMs came about, I'd probably have referred people to Google. And asking kind of the silly question into Google, because there's the likelihood is somebody else out there, many people out there have asked a similar silly question, or what they believe might be a silly question. And that's the fundamental of the curiosity thing. It's not about going off and learning how to code because you're curious. It's about just asking those early stage questions. And often, and this is how I kind of ended up in the position I'm in with kind of my own technical knowledge, it sends you down rabbit holes, and you end up unlocking new levels of confidence, which then allow you to ask deeper questions, more detailed questions. And it's kind of like a snowball effect, really.
And also that's so true, because it's that you're doing that to yourself, but also that as you're releasing new versions of a product or you're iterating something, you're actually that sort of cycle of kind of total ignorance, finding something out, finding what's interesting to you, that allows you to develop something that's also super relevant to you as a person as well.
100%.
And that's and I think kind of that, if you're there running a business, actually knowing that will give you a competitive edge in a way that, just by understanding it, that baselines you where your competition are today, tomorrow. Having the personal piece of it, I think, gives you that thing that people will go and buy you in the age of AI, because you are doing something that is what they like, because they like you, and it's back to that human connection piece.
Know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're running short on time-ish,
already.
I think. I don't know, we've been blaring on for ages, and I've lost track of time entirely, so it's very good. But could you just run through, again, those 4 principles that you were talking about, and, kind of like how you put them to use in the real world, and kind of just because I think a lot of people will be like, that's really interesting. How does that apply? And also how and when would they talk to you and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I'm sure, I assume you're referring to our values as a team.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Principles, values.
I can't believe they're not pillars yet.
We did play around with the term pillars, to be honest. Maybe we will evolve to that. So empathy, curiosity, courage, and pragmatism. The empathy piece is number one, because everything we do, both internally and externally, revolves around people.
Yeah.
They're at the end of the decisions we make. Often they're involved in the decisions we make. When they're not, tends to be when projects of this nature tend to fall down, when they're kind of implemented by senior leadership without any involvement from the people that actually affect or are affected by the change, is often fairly fatal, sadly.
Yes.
In terms of the adoption of the change, I should say, not, curiosity, we've obviously harped on about, I think, probably plenty enough, but just having the curiosity and courage could probably be bundled together, to be honest. Courage does apply kind of more broadly, but it does tie quite closely to the curiosity piece of, as I say, having the curiosity to explore some of these ideas, some of these concepts, some of these technologies is all good and well. Having the courage to do something with that knowledge that you've acquired, and with the context that you have of your role, of your business, of what you need, is where you'll see the value. And then the pragmatism piece is, again, as we kind of mentioned at the beginning, there are plenty of tech evangelists out there. We don't need to be more of them. We don't need to add to that pool. And I think tech is a fantastic tool. I think too many people see it as the be all and end all. And it's a very specialized kind of multifaceted hammer, I guess. It's a Swiss Army knife, a modern day Swiss Army knife. But
it's funny that AI is Swiss Army knife. So we've had a few run-ins with this metaphor, and so the first time it was like AI is a Swiss Army knife, and it's like that makes sense. Then we were kind of talking about it with like a few of our tools, and we were like, this isn't a Swiss Army knife. What this is a toolkit with all of the stuff that you have on a Swiss Army knife, but when you only use the screwdriver, just get a screwdriver. Yeah. It's better, it's just better. And then my favourite one was went to so it was a local government camp north. And what's interesting for us is that public sector and private sector, unlike previous waves of digital adoption, are pretty much lockstep. So you're seeing like innovation going on. Like we're doing stuff that, I have not seen fully deployed in the private sector, in the public sector.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously different use cases and variation, but there's some great people doing some great stuff. And someone got up and was like, we see like general AI models as the plastic fork. And you're like, that's probably where it is. You're like, right, that feels about right. And it's all of that sort of thinking of it. And there'll be people watching going, why are you talking about cutlery? But when you start digging into it, you really get a feel for these sorts of analogies and how they kind of play through.
Yeah.
But the other thing I just think so great is that idea of like good design is diverse design, which is good design. And you need everyone around the table. And you don't just need them around the table, you need them around the table and confident to speak and participate. And I just think your tip of like play with this stuff so when it's your turn to speak, you kind of know what you're saying. Because where things have gone wrong socially with this technology is where a small group of people have just run off and done something that they thought was the thing. And, it's just not stress tested against all of the wonderful things that humans will go off and do and all the evil things people will go off and do. And it's like, how does that reconcile? I just think that leads to so many things.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. There's one thing that you mentioned at the beginning, and then you've not gone back to it all, and I just need to understand. How has this intersected with the world of golf?
Is it?
Have you been using ChatGPT to improve your swing? Have you uploaded a video of yourself and gone, critique me?
Do you know what? There are plenty of tools out there. I haven't used them.
Okay.
Not because my swing is good enough to not need them, but I hasten to add that's not a brag. Do you know what? It's interesting because I almost see them as sort of opposites, to be honest.
Okay.
And as I say, there is plenty of technology emerging in the golf space. Obviously, it's a very data-driven game. So there's plenty of data to work with. So AI and tools like that love data, as we know. Yeah. So that's all emerging. But I honestly, I kind of see it as a bit of a release, a bit of an escape. Gets me out in nature.
Yeah.
Often in the rain, sadly. But yeah, no, for me at least, the two, I try and almost... I don't know, it's weird. I've never really considered whether I intentionally avoid them intersecting.
That's so interesting. That is so. One of our future guests is someone who looks at nature prescribing.
Okay.
So we do a lot of work in adult social care and stuff like that. And one of the big things to do with an aging population is to try and stop people getting ill. So it's this prevention piece and stuff like that. But actually being in nature is good for people of all ages to go out. And also it starts to trigger different parts of your brain chemistry. So if you have your hands in soil for like over half an hour, it starts to release serotonin. That's crazy, right?
At the weekend we were looking on the National Trust app for places to go, and one of our local ones had an event coming up that I think was woodland bathing. Oh, so that's a big thing. Which is really big. I'm assuming a similar kind of thing. Forest baths is the Japanese. And that's so actually we've done modelling for local authorities where we've kind of worked out all of the people who of a certain age and a certain level of like who would benefit the most.
that are within like an X minute walk
Right.
of areas where
Yeah.
they could go and participate in that as a means. And also it's great because it gets people outdoors. There is a benefit of being in nature. It helps combat social isolation because they are generally group activities. So there's a lot of goods or benefits of doing it. So yeah, that's interesting. So when we get, so it's a woman called Jane Fisher who's been doing all this social prescribing stuff. So we'll drag her on and be like, right, we'll have a crossover and see like a collaboration.
Absolutely. Yeah, love to.
It's important that you get that balance.
100%. Yeah. And this is, I think, again, people in my sort of position with the skill set that we have and the services we offer often get, I think, tarnished unfairly with a brush that we're trying to replace everyone with technology. And that's the future. And I think I back to kind of why the reason I kind of got further deeper into technology with my dad and helping him was I just realized that he could make a better use of his time. And we're all here for a finite period of time, sadly. At least that's my belief. And so
you're not investing heavily in eternal crowd.
Not yet. Maybe in a few years.
Next year.
But yeah, that's my motivation is I hate seeing people whiling away their hours doing a task that isn't as valuable as it could be. There are other more valuable uses of their time. As you say, we're human beings, right? We're social creatures. We're better off interacting with most of us at least, are better off interacting with other humans. And being in more kind of customer facing roles and things like this, not bedded deeply into a spreadsheet. So yeah, that's kind of my main motivation is just help people to adapt the way they work, leverage technology, to do more of what means more to them, I guess.
That's amazing. I think that is what a note to end on. That is, that wraps.
That wasn't planned.
it was planned or not. It was perfect. So it's brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been super useful.
Fun
if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
So website is Adapt Digital. My LinkedIn, Patrick Kelley-Weller, Kelley-Weller. They're probably the two best places to find me. LinkedIn's probably the strongest, to be honest.
Brilliant. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and we'll see you soon.